You probably know that I love Game Boys, I love retro games, retro tech, modern tech. But did you know I also love Adventure Time? It is such a good show. It is probably my favorite animated series of all time. Pendleton Ward creates this child's world of imagination that feels so familiar to any of us who've ever been children, which I think is like probably most of us, right? It's so familiar, and yet it's so new and refreshing. And even the show itself, centering around flipping the trope of this obnoxious yet charming main character who messes up all the time, and yet there's never any negative consequences because he's the main character. Because no, Finn has consequences all the time. Finn gets told no all the time, and he has to deal with that, and he has to grow. And we actually see him age, which is baffling and new for a cartoon. And just all the other characters in it too, including Marceline and Princess Bubblegum, who that was a ship we're all like, we hope this sails, only to find out it started sailing before the show even started. And there's just so much like casual philosophical moments in it as well. It's such a beautiful show. Another favorite of probably anyone who's ever seen the show is BMO. BMO is so pure of heart and naive and playful and lives in her imagination and reality at the same time, as though both were equally real.
I'm not going back, BMO. I'm staying on this side forever. Football? Football? No! No! Football! No!
And has these moments of absolutely just chaotic nihilism out of nowhere, which come out of just taking everything moment by moment. I think regardless of who you are or where you are in life, there's something very magnetic about that. I'm your cool and cool Marissa, and I tried to make BMO. Probably like any other Adventure Time fan, I wanted to make a BMO handheld as soon as I got into the modding hobby. 30 years ago. If you Google like BMO Game Boy, you will get a lot of results, and chances are I don't like those. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to do something that's not trying to be exact, because that is going to take a lot of effort to put in like a faux disk drive, to put in the triangle button. There's just a lot of things that are present on the BMO character that you would have to make a lot of modifications to place on a Game Boy or Game Boy Color or anything in that line. And so I thought that that would give me some freedom for artistic liberty. I'd seen some people who do stickers for the extra bits. It doesn't work. It looks bad. So I was like, I'll go for a kind of pastel look. And the first Game Boy Color that I modded, I decided BMO. Got everything ready, and I spray painted a transparent shell into a sort of pastel vibe color of what BMO's color scheme is. And I was pretty happy about it, especially, it being the first Game Boy Color mod. But unfortunately, this was before I knew that a certain company should not be purchased from, and the shell promptly self-destructed. It just started cracking from the center, and after that I didn't really feel like trying it again. I was a little bummed out. Fast forward to when I was making my first Pocket Color. This was the half and half version, and I thought this would be a great chance to try the BMO build again, because the Game Boy, honestly, the DMG is probably the most BMO-esque, except for the start and select button, I would say. But I don't really like the DMG anyway, so forget about it. And then the Pocket is definitely a close one as well. So I was like, this is the perfect chance. This time I got a shell, which I think is actually like a pretty good pastel BMO color. And I think, it was decent, but I wasn't huge on it because that build overall was not terribly good for me, and I didn't end up using it, so I just kind of stowed it away. When it came time for me to make my most recent Game Boy Pocket Color with the full board, with Bucket Mouse's board, I knew that I was not gonna do BMO because it's like the some sort of curse or something. It felt like I just was not meant to do this. So I made the strawberry lemonade build that I shared with you guys. I love it. You know, to be honest, I really love that build. And then after that, I figured maybe the next one can be BMO. And the yellow PCB that made quite a few cameos in my build video for the MGBC is the one that ends up being BMO's internals. Because if you've never seen BMO's internals, ta-da! And here we have him. And so I just want to go through everything that makes up BMO with you guys, because it's quite a lot of things, a lot of details that even right now, looking just at this, you're not necessarily going to be able to see, but I think they're what makes everything click. So let's take a closer look. Starting from the top, we have the translucent shell, so we can see BMO's internals, and it's a Cloud Game Store shell. The buttons are custom ones from Lab 15 Co. that I had ordered from him back in the original BMO Game Boy Color day, and I'd actually asked him if he could make these same colors for Game Boy Pocket, but the colors he sent me were totally off, so I ended up modding these to be used with the Game Boy Pocket. And honestly, that's just such a vibe of like, sometimes handmade is just lightning in a bottle. Now this ROM is from Grumpy Function and it's a lot of fun to play with, and it has the game from the show in it too. I've got these membranes that are a similar color to the shell. They're like teal, so that it feels like it's more solid. The bottom right speaker, I really wanted a white speaker because it's his infinity box, but there's no white speakers for some reason, so I just went with yellow. And of course we had the power regulator. Let's take a look at that. This power regulator was built in collaboration with Jack V. He's so awesome. I was like, hey, can you do this heart? And because he's got some really cool power regulators that are in different shapes, and he was super down, so I drew it up and he turned it into this. It's really cool. So big thank you to Jack for that. And on the top, I have the low battery indicator from Froggo Customs, patched over with a wire because I bought the Game Boy Color one. By the way, I accidentally ordered a bunch of these in Hassel with the silver finished, so those are actually going to be in my Ko-fi. There's some stuff happening on the back of the PCB too that I want to talk about. So I use these really thick, juicy wires. I wanted that to be like the wires on BMO's motherboard. I'm really happy they stayed on. I was really worried that they were going to be too thick for the solder points. You have it on the speaker as well as going to the display. You might also notice I have a bodge wire from the CPU to the FFC connector, and that is from lifting part of a pad on the FFC connector. So I had to fix it up with that, and I think that that's kind of honestly in character for BMO. On the top right, we have Helder's Tech's replacement power switch for GBC. Thank you, Helder, for making those. He's like the only guy who does, and they are very helpful. And to just show you the back, so I made custom back sticker for this with my new Pocket Color logo. We've got some concept art of BMO and a quote from Mo.
I must have built one like a million Mo's, but BMO is very, very special. I built BMO to understand fun and how to play. You see, I made BMO to be more.
And of course, made in Mo Factory in the Badlands. I also love that you can see the wires through the back as well. And BMO, he's got these screws on his butt, so I just stuck some of these rivets into the battery lid and I scuffed them up with a file because, you know, when she's sitting on her butt, they're gonna get scuffed, right? I I'm super happy with how everything came together. There were definitely some parts where I was like, oh no. But it just ended up working. And I think some of the weird little things like the bodge wire and stuff, it kind of makes sense because when you see the show, BMO's constantly just getting messed up and having to be fixed up. And having those marks, I think, adds a lot of care and love and character to it.
This is probably bad, huh?
I'm really happy that this came together. It feels like one of those things that I'd been chasing since the beginning that just never really worked out, and yet here we are. And who knows, maybe in the future I'll be able to make an even more BMO. There's so many talented people, and everything's constantly evolving. But until then, a big thank you again to Jack for working with me on this. That was just so cool of you. And if you guys want any of the leftover random color power boards, they're in the Ko-fi for shipping. And speaking of Ko-fi, thank you so much to my Ko-fi supporters, whether you are a monthly subscriber or a one-time donation, or you just bought something from the shop. All of that helps a lot with this channel and with life. So a big thank you to all of you, and thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm your cool Uncle Marissa, and don't forget that cool uncle loves you, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.